How an Anthony Edwards-less Timberwolves team defeated a zombie Warriors team, snapping a 5-game losing streak. Next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Happy Tuesday, everybody. And it is a happy Tuesday. The Timberwolves snapped a 5-game losing streak dating back over a week now and playing 4 games in 5 days. This is a big win. The Timberwolves did not have Anthony Edwards. The Warriors did not have hardly anybody. We'll talk about that. And it still started off pretty sluggish and I'll say sloppy again for the Timberwolves. We'll talk about what happened there. But also the dominance of Rudy Gobert in this game, the juice that Bones Hyland provided off the bench for the Timberwolves and what that does for the Wolves. I've got 3 big things I want to hit first from this one. We'll talk about, yes, the sloppiness, but also how the Wolves ultimately overwhelmed this, we'll call it a zombie Warriors team. Really late second quarter is when the Timberwolves pulled away and ultimately found a way to win this one pretty easily here by 25. So we'll talk about all the different aspects of this one. We'll close with individual studs and duds. First, a big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. You can watch on YouTube. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. All right, so first, who didn't play? For the Wolves, it was just Anthony Edwards, and of course, TJ Shannon's still out with the foot injury. For the Warriors, I guess it's more about who did play. No Steph Curry, sitting on the second night of a back-to-back. He's got a bit of a knee injury, but back-to-back. Draymond Green, same thing, back injury, back-to-back. Kuminga's not been playing. He's got the trade request out there, so he didn't play anyway the other day. And then you've got DeAnthony Melton, Al Horford, both of whom are not playing both sides of back-to-back. So they both played in Sunday's win over the Wolves and did not play. So that's 5. And then you obviously Jimmy Butler with the ACL injury has now been out for about a week. So this is a shell of a Warriors team with only really 2 or 3 regular rotation guys played regular rotation minutes. Buddy Hield off the bench. Quentin Post, who played a little off the bench for them the other day in the rotation. Pat Spencer is on the fringe of the rotation. He led them in minutes with 34 in this game. Obviously, Podziemski played a lot for them. So, that's how you only score 83 points in an NBA game is you roll out the sort of lineup that the Warriors rolled out in this one. So, obviously, the Wolves should have won. There's no question about that. It was still a slog early in this game, and I want to start with my 3 big things. And number 1 is the turnover problems, which is what led to such a slow start. It was 21-20 Minnesota at the end of the first quarter. So, this was on pace to be an 84-80 game, and the Warriors barely outpaced that 80 points. The Wolves offense figured it out late second quarter, but it took until the late second quarter before they figured it out. On Sunday, Minnesota had 16 first-half turnovers en route to 26 total turnovers by the team in a, massive blowout loss to the Warriors. In this game, the Timberwolves still finished with 22 turnovers overall in this game. 22 turnovers in a game that they ended up winning by 25. That's how anemic the Warriors offensive, I don't even want to use the word attack, how anemic their offense was. The Wolves also, again, shot the ball well. They didn't shoot the ball very well on Sunday, but it was fine enough to win had they not turned it over a billion times. Remember, they just shot the ball 17 less times in Golden State. Well, guess what? They still shot the ball 14 less times than the Warriors in this game, in part due to Warriors offensive rebounding. They were better than the Wolves on the offensive glass, and there were a couple of possessions that Golden State got 1,000 cracks at it seemed like. But more problematically, the turnovers. Minnesota, again, with 22 turnovers. Julius Randle, the primary culprit, with 6. You had Dante DiVincenzo with 4. McDaniels and Gobert each had 3, and so did Reid. So that was a massive problem, and especially early in this game. I thought Julius Randle got off to a really slow start. I thought that DiVincenzo got off to a really slow start. He came around in the second half. We'll talk more about that later. But the overall flow of the offense was completely off. And obviously, Anthony Edwards didn't play, right? So that's a big reason for it. You take out the guy that soaks up most of your offense, both from a scoring and a creation standpoint, and things are going to change. I mean, he played Sunday, and it was a problem, and he was part of the problem, which is uncharacteristic of Ant. And it continues to be really the only thing that holds this offense back. And I know that there are frustrating games, But you look up, and this is still easily a top 10 offense in the NBA, and turnovers are the one thing that they just consistently struggle with. Some of the other things, there's peaks and valleys. That's just how this thing works. But turnovers continue to be a problem. And that's really more of an attention to detail. It's not like the way that they're trying to play. It's not like they're playing at a ridiculously fast pace and they're accepting the risk of turnovers because they're pushing the pace. That's not what they're doing. They're just lazy passes, passing to ghosts, waiting for, guys cut, and then you pass to where they were. There's always a couple of those a game, it seems like, where you're throwing the ball into the first or second or third or fourth or eighth row. That stuff happens too often for this team. It's very frustrating. And that kind of leads me into my second big thing. And we'll stay here for a minute. And that's the difference that having Juice off the bench makes. Bones Hyland and Reid were both really good in this game. Bones had 3 points, I think, in Sunday's game. Reid had 0 points in Sunday's game. Only squeezed the trigger, I think, on 4 shots in that one. In this game, they combined to score 32 points. 32 points on 12 of 21 shooting, which we'll take any day of the week, and also 6 of 11 outside the arc. Just night and day difference. And focusing on Bones here for a minute, Bones Hyland only had 1 turnover, and he was on the court for 25 minutes. He had 5 assists. He got off 9 shots himself, and there's a downside to Bones being as aggressive as he is. And I think I talked about this on yesterday's show after Sunday's game. I talked about it after the last loss when the Wolves lost on, was it Thursday of last week? Was the last time that they played, where Bones comes in and he's never seen a shot he didn't like. And as soon as he has the ball and can see the rim, it's going up. That's not always a good thing. It's not always a good thing. However, when your team is just turning the ball over like crazy and you don't have Ant and there's no other scoring juice on the floor, and Jaden McDaniels is playing passively as he was in the first half of this game, and Randle's turning the ball over a bunch as he was in the first half and really throughout this game, then fine. And that's the difference that bench juice makes, is how I'm going to phrase it. And I'm not saying Bones Hyland is the solution based on that. I think we've seen a lot of evidence in the last 10, 12 days to suggest he's not. But I think it underscores, the trade deadline's in 9 days, a week from Thursday. I think it underscores the importance of shoring up the Timberwolves' depth. Hopefully Ant doesn't miss more than 4 games or so the rest of the way. He's going to get close to that threshold for all NBA teams and awards and all that stuff. Which isn't the only reason, but it's something to keep in mind. They're going to need an additional boost in depth. And if they think that Bones is the guy, or the risk reward of adding somebody is, and we'll talk more about this on tomorrow's show. We'll talk about some more Kobe White discussion, some of that. There's certainly risk in any move you make, but is the risk reward of adding a guy like a Kobe White or a similar name and salary figure to the rotation greater, and the acquisition cost too high versus the ceiling of what Bones Hyland can give you, plus Reid when he's playing well? I think this game in particular more underscores how important that juice off the bench is. And yeah, it was even more important because Anthony Edwards did not play, but they still got double figures. They still got 14 or more points out of 4 of their 5 starters in this game. They did need the bench juice, but it's important when Ant does play. Right, as we saw Sunday, they didn't get any. Those guys combined for 3 points, and in this game they combined for 32 points on 21 shots. And Bones Hyland specifically 5 assists and only 1 turnover. So it underscores just how important getting more of a lift from the bench is, and also whether or not that's Bones or someone else. And would I have more faith in Kobe White doing that? And I'm using him as an example because he's a realistic name that would fit the Bones role. He's a reasonable comp for Bones Hyland. Obviously different guy, but that type of a score first combo guard player, or anybody else, right? Insert another, obviously a much bigger move would be a Colin Sexton type move, right? But how important that particular person would be to what the Timberwolves are trying to do is underscored by the performance of Bones, and to a lesser extent, I think, Reid in this game. Having that shot creation, having somebody that can lubricate an otherwise stagnant, kind of creaky offense at times is very important. And Bones in this game was great. Nas was very good. I thought both of them were really important to the Timberwolves extending what was a very precarious lead in the second quarter. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. I just wanted to hit the 3 big things before we get too in the weeds on the game, the blow-by-blow of the game. But the second quarter was really big for Bones and for Reid. Naz was huge as the Wolves built a double-digit lead in the waning moments of the second quarter. I want to get to my third of my three big things. We'll hit a couple other notable things before we get into individual studs and duds here to close out the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things on and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They'll handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction possible. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. You got a little bit of time, just over a month. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. The NBA trade deadline is almost here. We're just 9 days away, and we want to give you a free month of the new Everydayer Club to help you get ready for the deadline. If you need a group chat to keep up with the chaos, join ours. The Everydayer Club gets you access to a group chat on Discord just for Locked On Wolves fans. Been very active in there here the last couple of weeks. Plus, there's national chats as well where you can hang out with fans from across the league, fans of other teams, etc. I will be in the Locked On Wolves chat. I'll be in the national one too, so come check it out, ask questions, have some great Wolves discussion. You'll also get ad-free versions of this show, too. If you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th, you can get a free month by using the code DEADLINE. Again, sign up by the trade deadline, which is a week from Thursday, so 9 days. Use the code DEADLINE. You'll get your first month of the Everydayer Club for free. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more, or you can click on or go to lockedonwolves.supercast.com. Okay. So my first two big things were the turnover issues, yes, and then also the difference that some juice off the bench makes. The third thing would be, more broadly, the overall balanced offensive attack in the absence of Anthony Edwards. And we certainly saw that a little bit. What was it? It was like 2 weeks ago now. They beat Milwaukee without Anthony Edwards. They dominated Milwaukee, and there was a little bit of a balanced offense there. But in the two games that Ant missed since then, there was the loss to the Rockets, which they easily could have won. They were ahead at halftime in that game. This was now 10 days ago, but I'm trying to think of the last times Ant didn't play. And the offense was okay. It just kind of ran into a wall in the second half. And honestly, this was more about who the Warriors didn't have than it was about the Wolves like running some sort of great offense. Like I talked about already, it was a key point. They had 22 turnovers. I mean, nobody scored more than 18 points. But to that point, they did have 6 guys scoring double figures. They had 6 players score between 14 and 18 points. And having a balanced offense is really important when your superstar is out, especially if Julius Randle is going to turn the ball over as much as he did. He had a pretty sloppy game, and he was a big part of the run late in the second quarter. It was a lot of Naz Reid and Julius Randle. It was still a 1-possession game with like 3 minutes left in the second quarter. And Minnesota went on such a big surge. What was it, over the course of just a few minutes? It was like 21-4, and the Timberwolves got up 53-38 at halftime. So they're up 15 at halftime because of this late surge in the second quarter, which was a lot of Naz Reid and Julius Randle. But overall, the fact that the offense was as balanced as it was very important for not having Anthony Edwards. And again, turnover is a problem, but at least they had 29 assists on the night, which still isn't a great number, but it was a lot better than what we'd seen on Sunday. And sharing the basketball, moving the basketball. There were some really nice possessions late in the second quarter, but again in the third quarter and early fourth, when the Timberwolves were holding the Warriors at an arm and a half's length, more than an arm's length, like a 20-ish point lead plus or minus. So it wasn't like it ever got too dicey, but it was still nice to see the ball move and kind of snap around the perimeter like it did for the Timberwolves. We saw Bones Hyland being unselfish with the ball. We saw driving kicks from guys like Jalen Clark. And it just was the ball movement was really nice. And the turnovers are still a problem, but they started to become less of a problem. We also saw less live ball turnovers. I mean, Golden State had 20 steals on Sunday. They only had 13 steals in this game. A lot more of the turnovers were of the offensive foul, throw the ball in the stands, dead ball turnover variety, which is still not good, but it's preferable to allowing somebody to pick your pocket at half court or throw a pick six to somebody for a dunk or an open three, which happened a lot on Sunday. So the balanced offense, I think, helped there. The ball movement helped. And that to me was super important in this game. We may as well talk about the second quarter here, because again, this was a close game, even in the late stages of the second quarter. And then all of a sudden the turnovers kind of dried up. Rudy and Rudy Gobert, we haven't talked enough about yet, but I thought Gobert was probably the best player on the floor in this game. Not probably, he was overall just the best player on the floor, hands down. And him and Bones were basically why this was still a close game, given how sloppy and how turnover riddled this game was over the first, call it 15 to 18 minutes of game time for Minnesota. It was all about Gobert dominating inside on both ends of the floor, and Bones Hyland provide an instant offense off the bench. Without those two guys, this thing's ugly, and the Wolves are probably losing by halftime. But because they played so well, they're up 3-5, something like that, late in the second quarter, and then it was kind of a Randle Nas push where it was like, all right, we can do this. Randle got a bucket and then created a turnover on the inbounds for the Warriors. That was a nice swing. There were a couple of those possessions that he had. Gobert in the open floor was awesome. I'm shocked looking at the box score. The Wolves lost points in the paint by 2 points. I mean, it didn't feel that way, but it was all Gobert. Gobert had 15 points. He on 8 shots. He was 5 of 7 at the free throw line, which is uncharacteristically great for him. He had 17 rebounds. Nobody else on the Wolves had more than 7. And Guy Santos is the only guy on the Warriors that had more than 7. He had 10. So Gobert dominated the glass on both ends, especially the defensive glass. But his play in the drop pick and roll his play dropping and pick and roll on defense was like, with no Steph Curry and no anybody else that's going to really, obviously no Jimmy Butler that's going to hurt you for Golden State. Like, you're not worried about anybody stopping outside the arc and knocking down a three at all. Like, obviously they've got guys that are capable of doing it off the, like, guards that are, Buddy Hield would be one, but he's not dynamic in the pick and roll anyway. He finished with 5 points on 10 shots. Pat Spencer can shoot threes, but you're not worried about what he's going to do to you. You can play your regular drop coverage, still get a good contest, and you'll be fine. And that's exactly what happened for the Wolves in this game. And credit Gobert for that. And also offensively, again, no interior defense like to speak of for the Warriors. Like, Quentin Post is a fine, like, decent player. He's not an interior defender. Moses Moody, not really a capable interior defender. Trace Jackson Davis, you're not worried about Trace Jackson Davis. With no Draymond Green, there was no extra line of defense. And so Rudy on the short roll, especially early in the game when nothing else was really working, was really good. Decision-making wise, catching it and kicking it to the corner. I think he's always been pretty good at that. It's just the Wolves get away from it so quickly because they're worried about the other shoe dropping. But I think for the most part, Rudy's pretty good in the short roll and decision-making when given the opportunity. And he also was pretty good with the ball in his hands. I mean, he shot 5 of 8. He got to the line for 7 free throws and made 5 of them. And, it's also how he ended up with 3 turnovers, which is a high number for him. But I thought overall the decision-making was good, and his usage early in this game was much higher than we're used to seeing. But he was great on both ends of the floor, and a huge reason why the Timberwolves were able to build that lead by halftime. The second half, we saw a lot more of Jaden McDaniels and Dante DiVincenzo. Like, those guys in the first half were very quiet. They combined for like 4 points in the first half and really didn't even shoot the ball. Like, neither one of them made a three. They combined for 5 shot attempts in the first half. And then in the second half, they combined for 25 points. So another way to say that, 25 of their 29 combined points were in the second half. All of their made threes were in the second half. They combined to go 7 of 10. Of course, Dante made 5 of those, but Jaden was good too. 2 of 4 on threes came in the second half. So they came to the party later in the game. The first half, it was about Rudy and Bones keeping them in it, Nas and Randle pushing them to that double-digit lead right before halftime. And in the second half, it was about DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels. Like, all right, we'll come to the party. We'll each get, we'll get our numbers. We'll finish with those guys combined 29 points on 9 of 19 shooting and 7 of 13 outside the arc. Like, those guys finally showed up in the second half in a big way, as the Wolves put away, again, the zombie Warriors. But They lost 5 games in a row, the Wolves had. So, like, it doesn't matter who's out there. You got to win. Because how devastating would this conversation be on today's show or the Locked On Wolves channel on Discord or on Twitter? Like, if the Timberwolves had lost this game to the Zombie Warriors, whether or not Ant plays, obviously it would have been worse if he did play and they lost. But without Ant, you can't lose 6 straight heading into another back-to-back, which includes at Dallas and home for OKC on the second night of that back-to-back this week. This was a pivotal game for Minnesota, no doubt. And they won. Like, credit where credit's due. Let's close by talking individual studs. The duds will peek ahead at what's next here on the schedule and what we'll be doing on tomorrow's show. All that is coming up here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. The energy was a lot better in the arena on Monday. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple, and that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. All you got to do is pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming game, and of course, the Wolves are home again Thursday, big game against OKC. Get your tickets locked in within minutes. You'll see your price, the all-in price up front, which I think is the best feature. You're not going to get surprised by getting hit with fees at checkout. It's all there up front, transparently. You also can see the view from your seat, which is another great feature that allows you to make your decision to buy easy. And they also have zone deals. You can choose your section. Game Time picks the seats, and you will save. Also, last-minute options. If you're not sure you want to hit up the game on Thursday, you can wait till Thursday to make your choice. You'll find a great deal on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, C-O, not gametime.com. All right, let's talk individual studs and duds from this one. Relatively easy to figure this one out. A lot of the guys we've already talked about, but we'll rattle them off here. The studs for me, I thought Rudy Gobert was the best player on the floor overall. Consistently in this game. He played 35 minutes, by the way. Nobody else played more than 31. Nobody on the bench played more than 25. Gobert was huge. Second night of a back-to-back, too, and at his age and his size, for him to be playing as frequently as he does, I mean, he missed that second night of a back-to-back, the Houston-San Antonio Friday, Saturday last weekend. But I mean, that's how rare that is that I think the only time he's just like, I know there was a real injury, the hip or whatever it was, but like only time, 1 of 2 times this year that he's actually missed a game on a back-to-back because of something. Like, the dude plays and he plays hard and he plays a lot of minutes. He was great. We just talked about him a lot last segment. 15 points on 5 of 8, 5 of 7 at the line, 17 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks. So 17 rebounds, 3 stocks, 2 assists. He did have 3 turnovers. He was a plus 22, which was the second best mark on the team. Also a stud in this game. Got to go Bones Hyland. Excuse me, Bones Hyland, 17 points on 6 of 9 shooting, 3 of 4 on threes. Hit a couple big ones in the second quarter when the Wolves were trying to keep pace and stay ahead by a possession or so. And I thought he was huge early in the game. 7 rebounds too, by the way, for Bones Hyland, tied for second on the team. 5 assists to only 1 turnover. He had 2 steals, was a plus 19. Probably one of Bones' best 2 or 3 games of this. Not probably, definitely one of his best 2 or 3 games. Maybe his best game of the season in a Timberwolves uniform. He's only been in a Timberwolves uniform this season. Anyway, great performance from Bones. 17, 7, and 5. We'll take that any day of the week. My third stud has to be Reid. 15 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block. So 4 stocks, 3 assists, 7 boards, 15 points on 12 shots. He came out firing right away after a rough performance on Sunday, a scoreless performance where he only shot the ball 4 times. He shot the ball 12 times in 25 minutes. He wasn't not shooting in this game. He was also a game high plus 30. Nobody else on the Wolves better than a plus 22 in a game the Wolves won by 25. He was massive late in the second quarter, him and Randle, as the Timberwolves pushed the lead up to, 15, I think, at halftime. Very important to what the Wolves were doing. And again, the bench juice we talked about, 2 of my 3 studs, Reid and Bones off the bench, again, combining for 32 points on 12 of 21 shooting, 6 of 11 outside the arc, combining for 14 rebounds, 8 assists, and just 4 turnovers, also combining for 5 steals and a block. Like, fantastic performance from Nas and Bones off the bench for Minnesota. My only dud would be Mike Conley. Kind of, I guess, once again, he missed all 4 of his 3-point shots. He did get to the line off of a really nice pass in the open floor from Reid. A tough finish for the aging Mike Conley, no longer the ageless Mike Conley, because he is aging. It is what it is. So he got fouled on like a crazy reverse layup attempt that he never would have made based on where he was, but he got fouled, made his free throws. So he had 2 points, did not make a field goal though. 0 of 4 on threes, had a couple go in and out, 2 assists, 2 boards, and a block for Mike Conley. But, he's got to make open threes. Otherwise, there's really no, other than being like an additional straw that stirs the drink, which he theoretically is, it's not really the case anymore. He's more like kind of the opposite of that. Like, yeah, he's a ball mover. He can organize stuff, but like, he's not a threat. Dude, like they're giving him the drive to the basket because they know he doesn't want to shoot it. And he's obviously less dynamic at this point than Jalen Clark. And if he's not making threes, he's a minus defensively. Jalen Clark's a plus defensively. Like if all he's going to do is drive and kick, and defenses aren't going to guard him, I'd rather have Jalen Clark out there because at least Jalen Clark is going to look at the rim and consider shooting a 2. And also, which by the way, he's only shooting 2s now. He hasn't really shot 3s lately. And he's going to be really good defensively. And I thought Jalen Clark was really good in this game. So another tough performance for Mike Conley, which, I talked earlier about upgrading the Bones role. Really what I'm talking about is upgrading the Conley role. That's the obvious piece here is you upgrade the Conley role and Bones plays a little bit less maybe, and you're less reliant on Bones Hyland, which I think would be a good thing. And then Mike Conley can come out of the rotation really entirely at that point. And you only use him if you absolutely need him because of, injuries or whatever. So I think that's ultimately what you're looking for when it comes to a deadline upgrade. Tomorrow's show, I do want to dig in a bit more on trade talk because we are only 9 days out. A week from Thursday is the deadline. So I want to get in on or talk a bit more. It's been a little over a week, I think, since we dug in on some stuff. There's a little more Kobe White smoke out there. I'm a little dubious it happens. And as I've talked about on the show, it's more because of the potential extension than anything else. Like if they somehow were able to get him for not, we'll talk about this specifics about assets they could trade tomorrow, but if they could get him for less than what I would consider market value from a team that would then turn around and extend him, and he's a rental, I'm all in. Because Kobe White, I think, is a great fit for this team. I really do think he is. I'm just petrified that they're going to have to give him $20 million a year and give up, whatever assets in the deal, second round picks and Dillingham and or Shannon and or Leonard Miller and all that stuff. I'm worried about what that looks like when you have to turn around and pay him. And he's actually just like another bench guy. Ultimately, I mean, he probably would end up starting, but he wouldn't take, like right now, he wouldn't take a starting role. DiVincenzo's in the starting lineup. So be him and Nas off the bench, which is nice, but that's an expensive bench. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. We'll also peek ahead. And, I guess tomorrow we'll be previewing the matchup against the Mavs. Peeking ahead right now, the Timberwolves have another back-to-back this week because of the postponement from Saturday to Sunday. They're playing 4 games in 5 days for the first time in years. They have at Dallas Wednesday, who's playing okay, actually, and then back home for an Amazon Prime game Thursday night against OKC, who, of course, is banged up. We'll talk about that on Thursday's show, a quick preview there after the Dallas game Wednesday. Games are coming fast and furious this week. And then we're in this rhythm now where there's no consecutive off days. So Friday's off. They play Saturday at Memphis. They play Monday at Memphis. They play Wednesday at Toronto. A very tough stretch upcoming in terms of frequency of games. Opponent-wise, this side of OKC and Toronto, like 5 of the next 6 of the next 8, something like that, are very winnable games against teams that have worse records than Minnesota leading into the All-Star break. So very important games upcoming. Obviously a big deal that the Wolves were able to win this one fairly easily and get Ant an extra day of rest as well. All right, tomorrow we'll talk trade deadline. We'll talk Wolves, Mavs. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. A reminder, if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. You can get Locked On Wolves ad-free plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonwolves.supercast.com to join the club. And if you're watching on video, when this episode is over, we'll send you to the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel. If you're on audio, make sure to make your second listen the NBA Game Night Show on Locked On NBA. Of course, this show is also part of the very same Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.